we already talked about the nitrogen, the sulfur, and the phosphorus, the trace elements, with their relationship with the microbial growth. Let's talk about the oxygen. So oxygen are essential nutrient for many microbes, not all, because they are many microorganisms are unable to metabolize or grow without the oxygen. So microorganisms can be broadly categorized into two depending on their relationship with the oxygen, aerobes and the anaerobes. So anaerobes, what do I mean by this? These are microorganisms that can grow at full oxygen tension, which means that they respire oxygen gas in their metabolism, which is crucial for their survival and growth. So we have the subtypes of aerobes. We have the microaerophiles and the facultative and the obligate aerobes. Obligate aerobes, these are microbes that cannot survive without the oxygen gas, which means that they are unable to reproduce, to grow, or to metabolize if there is no supply of oxygen. Now, the microaerophiles, these are microorganisms, or by contrast, are aerobes that can use oxygen only when it is present at level reduced from that in the air, which means that they only need small amount of oxygen to function. So now we also have the facultative aerobes, meaning that under the appropriate supply of nutrients and culture conditions, they can grow in the absence of the oxygen gas. So the facultative aerobes do not care with the absence or presence of the oxygen so long as there is enough supply of nutrients, their culture condition is in optimal status, so they do not need oxygen if that's the case. But in some cases, they still need oxygen. The second category is the anaerobes. So these are microbes or microorganisms, particularly bacteria, that are unable to use molecular oxygen for energy-yielding reactions. In fact, oxygen can be toxic to them, or sometimes that can harm them. But there are three subtypes of the aerobes. So we also have the obligate aerobes, the aerotolerant anaerobe, and the facultative anaerobes. So facultative anaerobes can use oxygen when it is present, but are able to continue the growth by using fermentation or anaerobic respiration when oxygen is not available. Let's say, for example, the E. coli. So here in facultative anaerobes, in the same manner, they can use oxygen then, but they also do not need it sometimes because they are able to, because they can respire through this what we call anaerobic respiration, or through fermentation respiration. That's the facultative anaerobes. We also have the aerotolerant anaerobes. So as I have already mentioned, that this oxygen can sometimes be toxic to them, but in aerotolerant anaerobes, they do not care about the oxygen. And aerotolerants they are tolerant with the oxygen. This means that although they do not use the oxygen, and the oxygen cannot harm them because they are tolerant to the oxygen, but they do not use oxygen. So obligate anaerobes are the microorganisms that are inhibited or even killed with the presence of oxygen. So with the presence of oxygen, they can drown in the oxygen, they can suffocate and eventually die. That's the obligate anaerobe. So now here's the table that summarizes the entire discussion about the oxygen in relation to the survival of microorganisms, the anaerobes and aerobes particularly. Aside from these mentioned elements, the nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, the trace elements, and the oxygen, we also have this something that cannot be produced, or that essential organic compounds that the microorganisms are unable to synthesize, it does not exist inside their body. So they must obtain it directly to the environment. So what are these compounds? This essential compound is called the organic growth factors. So what are the examples of organic growth factors? For example, some bases like purines, pyrimidines, and even the amino acids and vitamins. So emphasis on the vitamins. Vitamins exist or function sometimes as a coenzyme or cofactors that needed by other enzymes to function. So what do we mean by that? The active enzymes are ready to use, while the inactive enzyme cannot be used by the body of the microorganism. So that is the role of the coenzymes, or the cofactor that activates this inactive enzyme. And that is the role of the vitamins with the survival and growth of the microorganisms. So that's pretty much it.